we had it. I met with Eric Yasinoff from City Council, and he is a strong supporter of tennis at Northam. And he was sort of surprised to hear all of the things that had been said about tennis not being, what was it? It was a foregone conclusion that tennis was not going to be in Northam Park, which was absolutely not true. And Eric then at the next meeting, I guess, City Council meeting, said that he was surprised that the Northam ParkTennis Advisory Committee had never been consulted on any of the stuff that had to do with Northam Park planning, and that he was insistent that I be consulted and representing the advisory board on any next step that happened with the tennis. So I wrote a nice letter to the City Council on behalf of the board, and said I was glad to hear that was happening, and if there was interest in keeping the courts there, and I was looking forward to working with them. And there are 31 teams that currently are at Northam. There are well over 500 members of Northam Park, over half of which are Upper Arlington members. And there's a lot of, obviously interest in keeping the courts there, 12 courts there. So I never heard back after that. I got a response back from Mike Shadoff from City Council. He's the only person who responded to my letter to City Council. And he said he was interested in keeping the courts at Northam Park too. Wasn't sure why I had never been consulted on anything. And so actually we've been trying to meet because it was spring break and I was gone, he was gone, but we met on Monday and he said, well, you've been consulted, right, on what's going on because you were told that you would be, and no one had ever spoken to me or anybody on the advisory board except for they, I guess, talked to Lee Spitzer, who is, our management person, Parks and Rec person, but is not a member. And anyway, so I talked to Mike today, who told me that the plan has been revised and that the current idea is to have 8 courts at Northam Park. They'll, of course, 8 courts will be there, but that is, of course, not acceptable if we want a huge tennis program, if we want to maintain the tennis program we have. It just wouldn't at all accommodate the programs if we want to have programs. It would be like having 2 baseball diamonds and trying to have a whole league there and support all the teams that you have, and you can't do that with 8 courts. But no one consulted the advisory board or anybody. I don't know who else was spoken to. So anyway, the good news is that there has been discussion open. The plan is to keep courts at Northam. Since I don't know and have not spoken to anybody and just found all of this out today, our next step will be to have the advisory board meet again, and I want to talk to people who are on the board and who run the programs and get numbers and information. And I haven't spoken to you at all yet, so I don't know all the stuff that you have already, and we can work on that. But I know that the board will be happy with the fact of 8 courts, because it's just you can't have the kind of program we have with 8 courts. People will come and maybe play for fun, but you can't have teams with that. And anyway, so the good news is the discussion's open, the courts are staying, and now we sort of have to figure out a way to work around, hopefully, getting more courts back in there. So I think if we got rid of 2 of the baseball diamonds, we'd be in good shape.
So she supports you now. You've got her on your team.
I am all for the baseball. So anyway, at least there's communication open, and I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad that there's been revision of that. But it really, we have to talk about what the point of having the courts there, and if you just want to have courts because we want our courts back, like you can. I'm blabbing away here.
You're doing fine. I don't need to participate.
It's like, well, if we want to have a baseball program, we have to have a certain number of diamonds so that we can have all the teams. And if we want to have 31 tennis teams, which is great, and youth programs and clinics and private lessons and all of that, you can't do it with 8 courts. So, we need to have more discussion, I think. But the fact is, if we're looking at having them there, we can maybe at least play with that. And I'm glad that we're